On this episode of Urban U, one of the most influential leaders in social movements for civil rights and nonviolence, close advisor to Martin Luther King, and City College alum Bayard Rustin. Our student work series featuring a segment produced by a student in the Hunter College journalism program. Cannabis education at CUNY with Queens College and Medgar Evers among schools offering training for the growing cannabis industry. That and more CUNY voices and stories. Welcome to Urban U. When the average person thinks of the civil rights movement of the 1960s, Martin Luther King Jr. likely comes to mind. But many still don't know Bayard Rustin, a City College alum and the architect of much of what took place during the fight for civil rights in the United States. The reason his work has gone unnoticed, he was a gay man who had been outed.
More and more, the reclamation work around him is centered around the sexual orientation piece, and it was really bigger than that.
Indeed it was. Juan Battle, presidential professor at CUNY's Graduate Center, describes Rustin as the consummate organizer who protested many injustices. But before he made his mark, he grew up in Pennsylvania, surrounded by activism through the influence of his maternal grandmother.
So his grandmother primarily raised him. She was very much involved with the NAACP. W.B. Du Bois, James Weldon Johnson, and others sort of made their way through the Rustin household.
By the time he reached university, his days of radical resistance began.
He went to Wilberforce first and got kicked out for organizing a strike, which is, I think, funny, and then ended up going to college in Pennsylvania, where he ultimately got his degree. Interestingly enough, not in organizing, he was a singer.
Coming for to carry me home, swing low, sweet chariot.
And then activism got bigger.
The man who organized this whole thing, Mr. Bayard Rustin. Ladies and gentlemen.
What he's definitely best known for is organizing the March on Washington.
That we have effective civil rights legislation, decent housing, integrated education.
When the what we colloquially called the Montgomery bus boycott came along, it was Bayard Rustin who actually implanted the seeds of nonviolence for King. Initially, he carried a gun himself, he carried a pistol himself, he had armed security, and it was Bayard Rustin who convinced him to get rid of all that. It was Rustin who encouraged and helped King start the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the SCLC, which became the mechanism for raising money and organizing for King's efforts, literally until he died.
Remarkable contributions that might not have been had Rustin given in to the intimidation he faced stemming from his sexuality and his trouble with the law prior to his work with King. In 1953, Rustin was arrested for having sex with a man in a parked car. He was sentenced to 60 days in jail and forced to register as a sex offender for the morals charge, which was often used to target gay people at the time. Though he was pardoned posthumously, that incident was one that was used against him time and again.
So there was going to be this march that was going to take place before the '63 march, before that one got organized. And Adam Clayton Powell, Jr., did not like the fact that it was not connected to the Democratic National Committee. And so he threatened to start a rumor that Martin Luther King and Bayard Rustin were lovers. And so King then withdrew from that march. Later, the '63 march is being organized, and Adam Clayton Powell was one of the first proponents, and loudly, to basically say that Bayard Rustin should organize that march. The march is organized in totality by Bayard Rustin. The problem is, because of his charge of sexual impropriety, there was some concern about having his name be at the front. So as a result, Randolph was seen as the director, and Bayard Rustin was seen as his assistant for organizing the March on Washington.
Today, many call Rustin a gay activist, which is true in part. Yes, he was gay, but his sexuality wasn't necessarily his main focus.
As he said, even towards the end of his life, his sexuality was a private matter. You know, he felt, oddly enough, he was never as oppressed because of his sexual orientation as he was because of his race. In my opinion, Bayard Rustin, literally from birth to death, was an activist and dedicated his life to liberating those who he felt was oppressed.
Abby Ashola for Urban U.
Karina Nicole Gonzalez, a bilingual speech-language pathologist, is the author of The Coquies Still Sing. Her debut picture book is about a family surviving Hurricane Maria and how the characters mirror the resilience and strength of the Puerto Rican people.
So the abuela is definitely inspired by my abuela, and Elena is inspired by every child in Puerto Rico and every child who's experienced a climate disaster. There's a scene in the book in which we see her crying, and I feel we rarely see children cry in books, and the fact that Crystal actually visually depicted that scene of Elena crying was so moving, and I wanted to write a story that children felt was real and authentic.
A Brooklyn College alum, Gonzalez intentionally used the coquí and its unique sounds as a symbol throughout her book.
The coquí is the emblematic sound of Puerto Rico. It's like a lullaby at night. There's something there that we perhaps as a people identify with the resiliency of our coquí frog, of yes, it's experiencing a population decline. Yes, you know, their habitat, you know, they're experiencing incursions in their habitat, and yet they manage to survive and sing at night.
Women are also central figures to her book.
My mother worked up to 6 jobs at one point during my childhood. I want to write stories that center moms, you know, or parents or grandparents, and all the sacrifices that they give up so that children can be happy and make it in this really tough world.
In addition to the fictional tale, The Coquies Still Sing provides readers with historical information and a list of resources for those wanting to learn more about the aftermath of Hurricane Maria.
My book touches on what it means to write a story that is grounded or cultivates a love for humanity and the environment within one story. It's an example of how we're intertwined, how we can't separate nature from humanity, that we're connected.
What do you hope to accomplish with your book?
You know, just seeing this little girl on the front cover, I mean, I would have loved to have seen that as a kid. And now we see more children of color in books, and I'm so happy about that. So what makes my story unique is that it's a story about Puerto Rico, and unfortunately there still aren't that many stories about Puerto Rico. And I hope that people, you know, welcome this story into their world and share it with others.
I'm Elena Romero for Urban U.
Hi, I'm Hunter College student Nora Wesson, and here's what's happening at CUNY. $2 million in grants was awarded to 11 CUNY programs focused on helping students return to their education after the pandemic. The National Coalition for Shelter announced its new Scholars Program, providing housing to homeless and housing insecure CUNY students. York College will soon have a new Welcome Center created with support from a $4.4 million grant. Baruch College grad Lena Cruz was named one of New York City's 40 Latinos under 40s by business magazine Negocios Now. Hunter College welcomed actress, model, and author Emma Radikowski this month to discuss her new book, My Body. And Brooklyn College and Grad Center music professor Tanya Leone received a Kennedy Center honor for lifetime achievement. Stay tuned for our next segment, produced by one of my classmates at Hunter.
Being in the pool for 2 hours every single day is like a kind of therapy session, you know, where you can't think about anything else. You just have to deal with yourself and the water, and that's it. And so it's like, I am like a totally different person when I can't swim all the time. My name is Sarah Decker. I am a senior. I am a English adolescent education major, and I am on the swim team. I've been a swimmer basically my entire life. I learned how to swim when I was 2, which I don't really remember that well, but I joined a competitive team when I was maybe 6 or 7, so it's been 14 years or something. I honestly didn't think when I was in high school that I was going to be able to swim in college, because I came from Texas, and Texas is a really fast state, and so if I went to college in Texas, I probably wouldn't be able to swim. I had so many people in my life telling me, like, Sarah, no, that's not, like, that doesn't make sense, like, you have to swim. And they were right. Like, it would have been really, really weird if I had gone to college and not swim, because, like, I'm an athlete at heart. Like, I want to work hard. I want to go to the pool every day, and I want to put down my best. My favorite stroke is backstroke. That's what I've been swimming basically as my main stroke my whole career. I'm like, my favorite event in the world is the 200 backstroke, so I'm like kind of a distance backstroker, I guess. We have a super young team with a bunch of underclassmen, which is really exciting because that means that they're going to carry on the legacy of the team. And they're all really fast and really motivated and excited to swim. I think my ultimate goal when I am gonna start racing is to not think about anything. I think that a lot of the times I have in the past at least, I overthink a lot about my races, and I have learned, especially through my college career, that I kind of just have to trust my training and trust that I know what I'm doing, and just try to feel good and feel confident. Like, that's the only thing I can really do, is just like tell myself that I'm fast and just go.
People have learned that one way to fight for clean air is data, gathering info about what's actually in the air we breathe. And the Community Sensor Lab at the City University of New York Advanced Science Research Center is helping.
We're really teaching people how they can build their own sensors, how they can collect their own data, and that anybody can do that, even if you're not a scientist or don't have a background in engineering or environmental science.
The website shows the Community Sensor Lab was founded by Professor Ricardo Toledo-Crow and STEM Education and Outreach Manager Kendra Krueger. They started in 2019 helping high school students build low-cost, low-power sensors to measure CO2, the greenhouse gas that causes most global warming. But then the pandemic struck.
They would get measurements of the CO2 levels inside the public spaces, the local grocery, the pizzeria, the dry cleaners, the subway, representing different amounts of ventilation available. And this was correlated to the potential exposure to COVID. So in some instances, we even notified the management of these stores that maybe they could improve their ventilation to keep people safe.
The lab now helps people from around the city build sensors that check many aspects of air quality.
This is the main format of the systems that we have. So here what you have is a microcontroller or computer with a little Wi-Fi radio and a display. So the display shows us what's going on. And down here you have the sensors. That's the CO2 sensor, that's the temperature, pressure, relative humidity sensor, and that green one is the particulate matter sensor. And we have a battery, a little power supply.
The sensors that people learn to build here have a do-it-yourself plug-and-play aspect, but they're actually quite sophisticated.
In real time, it will send the information to our spreadsheets. Right? If there's no Wi-Fi, then the data will be stored on a little chip that we can then remove and then download ourselves.
Intern Amalia Torres, a Queens College computer science student, has been designing and managing code for the system for 2 years.
She served not just as a writer of the code and designer, but also as teaches other people how to download, how to install all these elements of the code, how to modify certain sections, how to do some debugging.
An intern from the community is Carolyn Ferguson from Brooklyn.
A lot of us that live in public housing are predisposed to a lot of respiratory infections like asthma, COPD, because the areas that we live in were once populated with factories. And now that we have all these warehouses in Red Hook, we're concerned about the amount of trucks coming in and out and the effects of the air pollution that they might bring. Those particles are so tiny that they can get into your lungs and into your bloodstream, and it can also cause birth defects. That makes me feel empowered to do something about it.
With parts bought online, each sensor costs about $200. Grants and crowd fundraising help with costs. So far, about 20 students have done the full training so they can train others. And it's about more than checking air quality.
Students or interns or community members can learn very specific skills. Skills like soldering, like how to work with a breadboard where there is certain areas you need to know what side has a positive power, what side has the negative connection, and learning about how batteries work and how computers work.
Building these sensors appeals to a lot of people, and Amalia says one request was a bit unexpected.
We got contacted by the Met Museum because to preserve art, there needs to be certain conditions within the air of the enclosures, and they needed to make sure that there was no leaking. And our sensors are really small, and they're also low power and low cost. So they reached out to us and they wanted to know if we could install our sensors in there. And then we worked with them for about a year, and then we taught them how to develop these and how they could use it for other things around the museum.
So it seems there are lots of ways these sensors to measure the environment can help protect what is precious. I'm Donna Hanover for Urban U.
Still up on Urban U, cannabis education flowering across CUNY with career-building paths in what's becoming a growing business sector. But first, more on the history behind our schools' names with a look at our Bronx and Queens colleges.
A lot of schools' names are pretty self-evident. A community college in the Bronx, Bronx Community College, easy. But many schools have deeper stories behind their names. As such, we continue our look now into the tales behind our CUNY school names. This month, the Bronx and Queens. Starting in the South Bronx. Hostos Community College is named after a man who has been called El Gran Ciudadano de las Americas, the great citizen of the Americas, Eugenio Maria de Hostos. Born in Puerto Rico in 1839, at the time still a Spanish colony, Hostos was nothing short of an intellectual marvel. As a sociologist, he advocated for women's rights. As an educator, he taught law in Chile and developed school systems in Peru. As a political influencer, he advanced railroads in Chile, Argentina, and the Dominican Republic. Perhaps Hostos' greatest passion, however, was the cause of independence for Cuba, the Dominican Republic, and particularly his home, Puerto Rico. In fact, when Hostos was buried in the national pantheon of the Dominican Republic, his final wishes were not to have his body moved to Puerto Rico until the day it was fully independent. To the North Bronx, Lehman College, named after Herbert Henry Lehman. Lehman was famously governor of New York from 1933 to 1942, and one of Franklin Roosevelt's right-hand men, championing liberal causes like widening immigration and supporting World War II refugees.
Our bill, the Humphrey Lehman bill, safeguards to the fullest extent possible civil rights and liberties, even for aliens. It not only revises and codifies, but also liberalizes and humanizes our present immigration laws.
He later served in the Senate from 1949 to 1957, where he would oppose Joseph McCarthy's anti-communist fear-mongering and became known as the conscience of the Senate. A lifetime of service, landing Lehman among the first ever class of Presidential Medal of Freedom recipients. Moving across the river to Queens now, we have a contemporary of Herbert Lehman, the mayor to Lehman's governorship.
We appeal to the decent, law-abiding New York citizens who love their city to rally to the...
Fiorello LaGuardia, mayor of New York from 1934 to 1945, lends his namesake to LaGuardia Community College. A progressive Republican and widely popular across political parties, he was a firm supporter, along with Herbert Lehman, of Democrat Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal. In fact, much of the foundation of New York's modern-day infrastructure happened under LaGuardia's watch. The West Side Highway, FDR Drive, Battery Tunnel, Triborough Bridge, also Idlewild Airport, now JFK, and of course, LaGuardia Airport. Indeed, he is often credited by historians as perhaps the greatest mayor in American history, not just New York history. And lastly, in Queens, we have a little bit of a curveball with York College. According to a 1991 interview in the school paper, the story goes that as the school was being established in 1966, the new president was struggling to land on a name, until a drive one day had him exit off the FDR, thank you Mayor LaGuardia, onto York Avenue, which sparked the idea. However, York Avenue actually is not named for New York or York, England. York Avenue is in fact named for an American World War I hero, Alvin York, who won the Medal of Honor for leading a charge against a German machine gun nest. So indirectly, perhaps unintentionally, York College stands as undoubtedly one of the few non-New York Yorks in the city. And as for the rest of the city, we'll continue our tour next time with more stories behind our CUNY schools. For the record, I'm Ari Goldberg.
Hi, my name is Tom Nazziola. I'm a composer. I'm also a graduate of Brooklyn College. I did my master's degree in composition. I had a wonderful experience with the teachers there, including Tanya Leon, who was my composition teacher, and Arnie Lang in the percussion department. The teachers weren't only great at helping with your craft, but very supportive beyond Brooklyn College. And that's something I really appreciated about the school. I had great experiences in having my music performed there and met some wonderful people that I continue to correspond with. And for students who are there now, stay with what you're doing, be consistent, be persistent, and as in my case, I mean, things will eventually go the way you hope they will, but you have to stay in the game in order to do that.
The cannabis industry is fast taking off, and with it, new business opportunities. And while the war on drugs of the last 30 years disproportionately affected people of color in the borough of Queens, Queens College, in tandem with Farmingdale State College, has taken a first step in introducing the community to this growing industry, with an eye to training the first generation of cannabis entrepreneurs.
The borough of Queens certainly has some areas that have been negatively impacted by the war on drugs. How do we as a college think about how do we reach out to that legacy market and help to support them and provide structures and ways for them to come into the legalized market?
In 2018, the ACLU found more than 700,000 marijuana-related arrests nationwide, while also finding extreme racial disparities in arrests. But in 2021, marijuana was legalized in New York, and it is some of these same people that will benefit from the state's Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, which targets people from the communities most impacted by the war on drugs. The Queens College Workshop, Introduction to the Cannabis Industry, was a starting point.
One of the presentations that stood out is the legalization of cannabis and what the current laws and regulations say about the cannabis market. And that was presented by a Farmingdale State College instructor. It was so popular that it fell right into lunch and nobody wanted to stop listening.
By some estimates, the cannabis industry could grow to over $50 billion by 2026. Richard Vogel of SUNY Farmingdale sees the future workforce coming from these hard-hit communities.
If the industry takes off, this is going to be an area where it's going to become, there's going to be a need for trained personnel, trained individuals to move into the industry.
There was a wide range of presentations at the workshop, including on the New Jersey market and on running a small business. Legacy market individuals, people who previously grew or sold cannabis, were in attendance.
I have since heard from a few of the participants who say, and the networking partners who have said that they've already connected with some of the participants who attended the workshops.
The new law is explicit about helping people who've been punished with marijuana offenses enter into this industry.
We have to think of it as a community-based program. If you want to talk about how do you help legacy market individuals enter into the cannabis space, you have to start in the community.
Bill Keller, now a special advisor to President Wu, helped to get the ball rolling on cannabis education at Queens College.
This is something that CUNY should be involved in, and based upon our success the first 2 sessions we had, I think it has proven to be a go. The target market is our students. CUNY should be involved in economic development.
Cannabis education is spreading across CUNY, as Medgar Evers now offers a degree-bearing cannabis minor, and BMCC, with partner Lehman College, will soon receive $2 million from the state to increase cannabis education. For Urban U, I'm Craig Thompson.
For more episode highlights and sneak peeks into our upcoming stories, meet us on our social media platforms. Thank you for watching these stories from the nation's largest urban university, the City University of New York.